Okay, good afternoon or good morning, class. I'm going to go through kind of this discussion board and kind of explain give you some context of this. This lesson is on the key documents of the Mexican Revolution, three in particular: the Mexican Constitution of 1824, Colonization Law of 1825, and Imperial Colonization Law. Some background info. Spain, let me get my face out of the way here. Um, Spain claimed land originally for Spanish explorers claimed the land for Spain originally and colonized it starting in 1535. This meant that the land of the Native Americans was now owned by Spain. And here you see kind of how large it was. It goes all the way into the United States, and it's a much bigger than what we see today. Okay, and in 1821, the people that live there, the people of native blood, Spanish blood, and a mixture of the two, the mestizos, they are going to fight for independence and form Mexico in 1821. Now, for a few years, they have kind of a government that doesn't work as well. So in 1824, they decide they need a constitution. So, what is a constitution? Well, a constitution is a rule book on how the government will run. Since Mexico was a new country, they needed a constitution to make sure that the government was based on rules and not just the wishes of some dictator or some person that's in charge. We know ours constitution here in the United States, but most countries have them. One that that we know of well. I know it's a little bit old, this picture, but it's the student parent handbook. And so when you get in trouble at school, it's based on a code of conduct that has been voted on by the school board. So that's kind of our constitution here at Pease. Okay, so let me kind of read this here for you. This is the document one is the Mexican Constitution of 1824. So just some of the parts of it, you have the Mexican nation is forever free and independent of the Spanish government and every other power. So that first part means that Mexico is now its own country. Okay. And then it talks a little bit about its territory. It consists of that. Its territory consists of that which was formerly called the Viceroyalty of New Spain. That was the official name of when Spain took the land. They called it New Spain. That styled the captain generalship of Tucumán, that of the commandant generalship formerly called the internal provinces of East and West, and that of Lower and Upper California, with the lands annexed and adjacent lands in both seas by a constitutional law. A demarcation of the limits of the federation will be made as soon as circumstances will permit. So that's kind of lawyer talk, explaining what the territory is. And I showed you that map on the previous page. It was all in red. It's rather large, going all the way up into what is now the United States. The religion of the Mexican nation is and will be perpetually the Roman Catholic Apostolic. The nation will protect it by wise and just laws and prohibit the exercise of any other whatever. So that means, let me go back. That means that the Roman Catholic religion will be the official religion, and they adopt a Republican form of government, which, if you remember from sixth grade, means that they vote. We're going to vote on stuff and have representatives. And then one of the parts that they then talk about how they break it into states, Mexico's states that they have. And one of the ones that's going to become a conflict is that Texas is part of, and I'm not going to pronounce this right, but Coahuila and Texas, they combined them, those states, and they made it one state. And that's, like I said, that'll become and here it is. Texas was not allowed to be its own state under the Mexican Constitution of 1824. So then, okay, so what's the second document? Well, the second document is called the Mexican Colonization Law of 1824. Let me try and move myself around here to where I'm out of the way. Let me see if I can just take myself out. Okay. The state of Coahuila y Tejas passed its state colonization law on March 24th, 1825. There was a national law and then also a state law. And pretty much what it brings up as I go through this, it talks about that they could colonize this land. Anglos could, as empresarios. Empresarios could petition the government to bring 100 or more families to the state at their expense. Their petition was to include a time frame for settling. So they really wanted people to come out here to settle. That's really what this was. So, what was an impresario? An impresario was a person who had been granted the right to settle on land in exchange for recruiting and taking responsibility for settling the eastern areas of Huajuila y Tejas. So, here are all the different names of people. Some of them you'll recognize, like Austin and different ones, Cameron. So these are all the people that were allowed to bring different families and settle the land. So why would Mexico want them to settle this area? Well, remember the Comanches and the Apaches were right in central Texas, and they were causing problems even as far away as Mexico City. So they wanted kind of a buffer zone. So what ends up happening is Anglos begin to colonize Huajuila y Tejas. Now, what is the difference between colonization and immigration? Well, when you colonize, you replace and remove the culture of the indigenous people that lived there before you. How would this present a conflict between the new Anglo settlers and the new Mexican government? Well, the problem for Mexico is they didn't care that they were replacing the indigenous population, but down the road, there's going to be some problems of, do the Anglos take more of their culture from the United States or from Mexico? So that's sort of the thing. But so that second document is really about letting these Anglos come in and settle. And the third one is the Imperial Colonization Law, which basically invited Catholic immigrants. But the key to this law is immigrants were permitted to bring slaves into the empire, but declared children of slaves born in Mexican territory free at the age of 14, and it outlawed the buying and selling of people. So Mexico, unlike the southern United States at this time, has outlawed slavery. So we've got document 1, which basically is the Constitution that sets up the Mexican government. Document 2 is where they set up the rules where they create these impresarios that allow Anglos to colonize. Then the third thing is they set up a law that outlaws slavery. And all of these things will eventually bring conflict to the area.